I try to give people a different way of looking at their surroundings. That's art to me. The principle of the Gothic architecture is infinity made imaginable. Architects today tend to depreciate themselves, to regard themselves as no more than just ordinary citizens without the power to reform the future. Architecture is not an inspirational business, it's a rational procedure to do sensible and hopefully beautiful things, that's all. Architecture begins where engineering ends. Buildings should serve people, not the other way around. For many years, I have lived uncomfortably with the belief that most planning and architectural design suffers for lack of real and basic purpose. The ultimate purpose, it seems to me, must be the improvement of mankind. Architecture tends to consume everything else, it has become one's entire life. We are called to be architects of the future, not its victims. I don't build in order to have clients. I have clients in order to build. I believe that the way people live can be directed a little by architecture. Architecture starts when you carefully put two bricks together. There it begins. Architecture is basically a container of something. I hope they will enjoy not so much the teacup, but the tea. Every great architect is, necessarily, a great poet. He must be a great original interpreter of his time, his day, his age. Architecture is the reaching out for the truth. Color in certain places has the great value of making the outlines and structural planes seem more energetic. Painting, sculpture and architecture are finished, but the art habit continues. At a certain point, I just put the building and the art impulse together. I decided that building was a legitimate way to make sculpture. All architecture is shelter, all great architecture is the design of space that contains, cuddles, exalts, or stimulates the persons in that space. Don't clap too hard, it's a very old building. The mother art is architecture. Without an architecture of our own we have no soul of our own civilization. I call architecture frozen music. Architecture arouses sentiments in man. The architect's task therefore, is to make those sentiments more precise. Great buildings that move the spirit have always been rare. In every case they are unique, poetic, products of the heart. Each new situation requires a new architecture. As a designer, the mission with which we have been charged is simple, providing space at the right cost. The dialogue between client and architect is about as intimate as any conversation you can have, because when you're talking about building a house, you're talking about dreams. Architecture should speak of its time and place, but yearn for timelessness. The ancient Romans built their greatest masterpieces of architecture, their amphitheaters, for wild beasts to fight in. Less is more. A great building must begin with the unmeasurable, must go through measurable means when it is being designed and in the end must be unmeasurable. To provide meaningful architecture is not to parody history but to articulate it. The bungalow had more to do with how Americans live today than any other building that has gone remotely by the name of architecture in our history. Form follows function. Architecture is the art of how to waste space. Architecture, of all the arts, is the one which acts the most slowly, but the most surely, on the soul. Architecture is the learned game, correct and magnificent, of forms assembled in the light. The loftier the building, the deeper must the foundation be laid. No architect troubled to design houses that suited people who were to live in them, because that would have meant building a whole range of different houses. It was far cheaper and, above all, time-saving to make them identical. All the revision in the world will not save a bad first draft, for the architecture of the thing comes, or fails to come, in the first conception, and revision only affects the detail and ornament, alas. Make big plans, aim high in hope and work, remembering that a noble, logical diagram once recorded will not die, but long after we are gone be a living thing, asserting itself with ever-growing insistence. When you look at Japanese traditional architecture, you have to look at Japanese culture and its relationship with nature. You can actually live in a harmonious, close contact with nature, this very unique to Japan. It is not the beauty of a building you should look at, it's the construction of the foundation that will stand the test of time. Architecture can't fully represent the chaos and turmoil that are part of the human personality, but you need to put some of that turmoil into the architecture, or it isn't real. Building art is a synthesis of life in materialized form. We should try to bring in under the same hat not a splintered way of thinking, but all in harmony together. A structure becomes architectural, and not sculptural, when its elements no longer have their justification in nature. But I absolutely believe that architecture is a social activity that has to do with some sort of communication or places of interaction, and that to change the environment is to change behavior. Architecture is invention. To me, a building, if it's beautiful, is the love of one man. He's made it out of his love for space, materials, things like that. We require from buildings two kinds of goodness: first, the doing their practical duty well, then that they be graceful and pleasing in doing it. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.